The Empire's chamber of war had no corners. Only a glass floor above a red dwarf star and blackened walls that whispered when no one spoke. 7 beings stood at the center, each one shaped by a different kind of death. One hissed from a snout lined with biohone bone. Another hovered without legs, just long silver claws twitching over folded robes. They were called the Vorn Enclave, the Empire's unseen hand. Diplomats by name, killers by purpose. And today they were discussing humans. "Tell me again," croaked Silena, her voice coiling like smoke, "how this soft-skinned species outmaneuvered our entire trade fleet." "They smiled," said Granox, a pale-eyed strategist whose species hadn't blinked in millennia. "They served us pie." A long silence followed. Then Thaura, the venom-gleaming priestess, tapped a curved fong against the floor. "You believe confection is strategy?" "I believe," Granox said, "that species who smile while bleeding are either saints or monsters." From the shadows, Admiral Coral, reptilian, methodical, stepped forward and activated a star chart. The human territories glowed small, ragged, insignificant. Yet beside them, 8 dead sectors blinked. Sectors once ruled by older, crueler empires. "They've never declared war," Coral said. "They've never raised a fleet. But where humans settle, others vanish." No one spoke. The glass under their feet vibrated. Coral's tongue flicked once. "Permission granted. 7 assassins. Dispatched to Earth. To clarify diplomatic misunderstandings, permanently." The chamber bowed in agreement. Light drained from the room. And somewhere, on a quiet hill in West Virginia, a kettle began to sing. The farmhouse looked like it had been stitched together by memory. A wraparound porch, a rocking chair swaying though no wind moved, and wood faded not by rot, but by kindness. The grass was stubborn and wild. The air smelled like honeysuckle and cordite. Inside he stood by the stove, spooning brown sugar into a chipped ceramic mug. He wore flannel and denim, hair clipped short, hands rough and old for a man in his 30s. A small scar split one brow. But his smile, that slow, deliberate drawl of lips, was warm as pie on a windowsill. He was the designated human contact, the tactician in flannel. He was also the reason 7 beings from 7 worlds were now making their descent into Earth's lower atmosphere, cloaked in adaptive shielding, armed with weapons forbidden by the Galactic Peace Accord, and carrying no intent of survival. They arrived like comets, silent and cold, melting into the woods beyond the barn. The man didn't look up. He just poured tea. The dining room was lit with candles. Not because the power was out. He just said electricity ruined the mood. A long oak table stretched between bookshelves and antlers. The chairs didn't match. One was velvet. One creaked like an old sermon. Each assassin had a place, set with mismatched plates and forks dulled by time. He stood at the head. "Welcome to Earth," he said, voice like gravel warmed in butter. "I know y'all don't eat like we do, but I figured I'd offer. Can't fix the galaxy, but I can sure make a mean pot roast." They stared at him in silence. Granox blinked. Once. "No response," the man asked, brows raised kindly. "Ah, Galactic Silence Protocol. Heard about that. Well, bless your hearts." He carved the meat slowly, passed the gravy boat as if it were a treaty. "I read somewhere," he continued, "that some of you breathe through your skin. So I kept the air unperfumed. Hope that's all right." Silena tilted her head. "You anticipated our anatomy?" He smiled gently. "I anticipated good manners." Irizal, the insectoid tracker, drummed his claws. "And what do you anticipate from us?" The man leaned in, elbows on wood. "Why, friendship, peace, and maybe a little honesty." The candlelight flickered. The shadows in the corners grew bold. He poured wine for them all. Red. From his own vineyard. None drank. Except Nar, the cybernetic predator, who analyzed it mid-sip. No toxin. No sedative. No enzyme triggers. The man nodded. Just grapes. Fermented by time and trouble. "You knew we were coming," Granox said flatly. The man didn't deny it. "I guessed," he said, taking a bite. "Y'all come in groups of 7. Always have. It's biblical, ain't it? Yusk, the leader, finally spoke. His voice was blunt, blunter than a club. We are not here to parley. The man set his fork down gently. Oh, I know. He stood, walked to the fireplace, pulled out a chair that had been turned backward. Thing is, he said slowly, I set 7 places. He turned the chair around. 6 assassins stared. The 7th place was empty. Yusk's eyes narrowed. Where is Victor? The man sighed, scratched his jaw. Well, I thought y'all might notice. Big fella, heavy-footed, lotta armor. Honestly, made more noise than a raccoon in a feed bin. Came down about an hour before the rest of you. Didn't knock, which I thought was rude. Grand Knox stood. Where is he? The man didn't move, just reached into his pocket, pulled out something small and dark, set it gently on the empty plate. A tooth, the kind no human had. Sat right there, the man said, voice still sweet. Didn't like the roast. Said he preferred his meals, screaming. No one moved. The candlelight flared. Outside, the wind kicked up. Inside, the quiet deepened, sharp tight. The man walked slowly to the window and drew the curtain. It's funny, he murmured. You think of us as soft. You look at Earth like a meadow with a gun under the grass. And maybe that's true. But what you don't know is that the grass wants you to step forward. Silena reached under the table. The man didn't look. He just said, 3 more seconds, and that knife's going to slice your own hand off. You're welcome to try. She stopped. He turned around. Now the smile had changed. Same curve. Different weight. I asked if y'all were thirsty. Silence. He poured another glass. Sat back down. I used to be military, he said. But I got tired of war. Tired of loud ends. Figured I'd try something gentler. Farming. Hospitality. You know, traps disguised as homes. Thalra bared her teeth. You consider yourself above fear? Oh, I'm terrified, he whispered. Every minute of the day. But it ain't about fear. It's about what you do with it. One of them moved. Fast. The chair splintered. The floor cracked. The man didn't rise. Just watched. Then, with a quiet pop and hiss, the attacker froze mid-lunge, arms shaking, joint stiff. The man tilted his head. Do you know what radio waves do to your species' equilibrium centers? He asked. The attacker collapsed. No blood. Just a soft thud. He took another bite of roast. Now, he said, eyes scanning the room, if any of y'all are interested in dessert, I make a mean peach cobbler. But if you're planning to kill me before sunrise, I'd recommend doing it before the coffee kicks in. Yusk stood, his voice now iron. You will regret this. The man chuckled softly. Oh, honey. He set his fork down, stood slowly, walked to the center of the room. His eyes were kind, but his words were a blade in a velvet sheath. You came here thinking humans were a species of sheep. Just because we talk soft, smile big, make jam. He leaned in, voice low. We are not sheep. He tapped his chest just once. We are wolves who learned how to garden. Then he stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. Dinner's done. Now let's see if any of y'all make it to breakfast. And somewhere outside, in the barn where no lights burned, the wind stirred something heavy, something large, and something missing a tooth. The farmhouse groaned in the wind. It wasn't a loud wind, just insistent, like a dog scratching at the back door. The kind of wind that didn't ask to be let in. It simply made itself known, curling around the eaves and pressing its breath into the glass until the house remembered it was old. Inside, the dining room was still set for 7. A full roast, barely touched. Plates gleaming with candlelight. 1 seat vacant. 1 tooth resting cold on a dinner plate, glistening in oil and shadow. Nobody spoke until the human broke the silence with the most horrifying sound imaginable. A chuckle. Well, now I'm glad that part's over, he said, rising and brushing crumbs from his flannel shirt. Y'all eat like diplomats. Not a soul touched the mashed potatoes. He walked to the sideboard, picked up the teapot, and began pouring into 8 mismatched porcelain cups. Chamomile mostly, he said gently, but I added a bit of lemon balm for nerves. Thought it'd help settle y'all. Granox leaned back in his chair, one pale hand twitching near his coat. You expect us to drink that? The human smile was polite, almost mournful. Course not. I expect you to weigh whether refusing it looks ruder than drinking it. None reached for the tea. Suit yourselves, he said, sipping his own. Outside, a barn door creaked shut. Slowly, deliberately, as if something large had just wandered back inside. Silena's eyes flicked toward the sound, but she said nothing. Her fingers traced subtle signals on the table, battlefield hand language from her species. Four codes passed silently. One responded, no exits confirmed. Another, no visual on hostiles. The human sat down again, swirling his cup gently. I know what you're thinking, he said softly. That Victor died stupid. That maybe I just got lucky. That you can outthink me. He set the cup down with a clink. But luck don't cut a man in half without waking the chickens. Thaura, who had not spoken since landing, hissed from the shadows. You used no weapon. Nope, he said, wiping his hands on a cloth. Just invited him to step into the barn. Told him there was something in the hay. What was it, she asked. He met her eyes. Hope, he said. He saw what he wanted to see. For a breath, nobody moved. Then Nar, the cybernetic assassin with optical implants, activated his internal scanner. Red lines flickered over the human's body, drawing faint schematics and biometric overlays in his vision. Pull steady. No hidden weapons. No exosuit. No modifications. He frowned. You're unarmed. The human looked almost hurt. A little presumptuous, don't you think? You're lying. Maybe. But then again, maybe y'all are so busy looking for steel and tech you forgot what else a man can be built from. The wind rattled a window. Then, just barely, a metallic sound, not from within the house, but under it. Granox stiffened. The human turned slowly toward the fireplace. You know, he said almost fondly, we used to build basements like ships. Reinforced, temperature sealed. Meant for surviving tornadoes, long winters, long visits. He walked over and tapped the stone mantel once. A soft click. The entire left side of the fireplace shifted, revealing a narrow stone staircase winding into darkness. Silena rose. Sit, the human said quietly. She stopped mid-step, body taut. You're in a house that ain't mapped, he said. On land with no digital signature. You've been jamming your own signal since landing. And I've been feeding your map feed a loop since you walked in the door. He sipped his tea again. This house ain't real on any database. Nar turned sharply toward the hallway, eyes flashing. The paintings, the books, the walls. All wrong. Every object in the house had subtle distortions, scale too perfect, where too artificial. The bookshelf hadn't been opened. The curtains never shifted with the breeze. The carpet was real. But the photos? Wrong shadows. Too clean. It was a simulation. A trap designed to look like nostalgia. This isn't your home, Granox said. Not anymore, the man replied. Silena's voice was low. Then whose is it? He set the cup down again. Yours. Yusk stood. This is a kill zone. That's what y'all made it, the man said, not rising. I was just fixing dinner. Thaura drew a blade, a long, curved thing that shimmered in both heat and chemical toxicity. It vanished from her hand mid-lunge, appeared an inch from her throat, held in the human's. He hadn't moved, or at least they hadn't seen it. He held the blade like it had always belonged to him. Now that's just rude, he said. Thaura stepped back slowly. The man flipped the blade once, then placed it on the table between the teacups. Granox swallowed hard. What are you? He asked. I'm tired, the human said gently. Tired of playing polite. Tired of sending warnings. Tired of burying people in nice suits while galactic councils sip wine and send killers wearing smiles. He looked at each of them. I'm what happens when good manners meet bad guests. There was silence. Then Yusk's voice came low and sharp. We are not guests. We are your reckoning. The human smiled. No, you were dessert. Silena moved first, a blur of obsidian and venom, but the ceiling dropped before she cleared the room. Not rubble. a net of fine, vibrating wires that sang when touched. She fell mid-leap, screaming in a frequency only two of them could even hear. Her body hit the floor, twitching. 5 left. Thaura went for the hallway. Nar sprinted toward the kitchen. Yusk pulled a pulse weapon from the sleeve of his robe, aimed at the tactician's heart. The human moved like slow thunder. By the time the weapon fired, he was behind Granox. Granox collapsed, not dead, but gasping. A faint dart shimmered in his throat, almost invisible. The weapon never fired again. Nar slammed through the kitchen door and found himself in open snow. Snow. There hadn't been snow outside. There hadn't even been frost. And yet now he was standing in a blizzard. The cold sliced through his armor like thought through silk. A soundless, freezing whiteout, no landmarks, no signal. Just one blinking red dot on his HUD. He followed it, and never came back. Thaura, too, was gone. Only Yusk remained, backing into the room, weapon still humming. "You will not survive this." "Oh, I won't," said the man, stepping forward. "But that's not the point." Yusk raised the gun. "You think this matters? The Empire will bury your planet." The human's face softened. "That's what I'm counting on." Yusk faltered. "You want war?" "No," he said. "We want clarity. And the only thing clearer than silence is what's left when it breaks." He handed Yusk something. A thermos. Yusk stared. "Tea." "It's polite," the man said. Then he opened the front door, slowly, as if to invite the night in. And Yusk, for reasons he would never explain, not even to his superiors, stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind him. The human exhaled, picked up a broken chair, set it upright, began gathering dishes. One cup was still full. He looked at it, thoughtful, then poured down the sink. Outside, in the dark, a red escape beacon blinked into the sky. It would take him back. That was the plan. Back to the Empire. Back with the story. Back with the truth. The truth wrapped in terror and served with a slice of southern hospitality. The truth the galaxy wasn't ready for. And as the beacon rose like a shooting star, the human stood in his kitchen, pouring fresh tea. Only this time, he made 1 cup less. The escape beacon carved a thin red line across the night sky, clean, cold, undeniable. Somewhere in the Empire's outer rings, it would be seen, tracked, interpreted, but not understood. Inside the farmhouse, the tactician watched the light fade, rocking slowly in a chair he hadn't used in years. The wood creaked like an old throat clearing, the kind of noise people stopped noticing in places too familiar to fear. He held a chipped mug in both hands, steam coiling upward, his breath lost in it. For the first time that night, he looked tired, not worn, not weary, but the kind of tired that lives in the bones of those who've buried too many truths. Down in the basement, soft sounds stirred. Metal brushing dirt. Footsteps. One of the surviving assassins, Granox, was still breathing, sedated, wrapped in linen and wire like a relic the earth wasn't done with yet. The man sipped his tea and didn't flinch when a panel in the kitchen wall slid open. No sound announced it, just a gentle vacuum hiss, and a sudden change in air pressure that could only be felt behind the eyes. A voice crackled to life, flat but warm, southern drawl coded into polished protocol. Confirmation. The man set his mug down. 6 confirmed. 1 launched. Alive. Scared. Good. Static buzzed. Then silence again. He stood and stretched, each movement deliberate, slow, like he had all the time in the world, because tonight he did. He walked to the pantry, opened it, and behind 3 cans of peaches, a retinal scanner blinked blue. It hummed, scanned, and unlocked the stairwell. He descended. The room beneath the house didn't match the rustic charm above. No wood. No charm. Just steel, stone, and the whirring hiss of machines too advanced to belong to a planet still debating electric trucks. A circular chamber, bright and silent. Granox hung suspended in a gel membrane, not quite conscious, not quite dreaming. His vitals were stable, barely. His mind? In chaos. The human approached, pausing before the glass. "Your brain's trying to convince itself none of this is real," he said quietly. "I respect that." He placed a hand on the glass. I do. But let me help you with something. His voice didn't rise, didn't darken. It stayed level, kind. We didn't win because we outgunned you. We didn't win because we built better ships or forged smarter AI. A pause. We won because we watched. He tapped the glass once. Granox twitched in response. We studied you. For decades. Listen to your diplomats talk like kings, and your assassins speak in whispers. We watched how you took planets, broke them like cheap plates, then blamed the fractures on history. He exhaled, slow. And we said nothing. Above them, the house creaked again, but this time with intent. Movement. Something large crossing a beam. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. We learned, the man said, what makes a civilization collapse. He stepped back. Turns out it's not always war. Sometimes it's confidence. Sometimes it's the silence after a laugh. He turned to leave, then paused, hand on the doorframe. We never needed armies, he said. We needed invitations. Upstairs, the front door opened. Wind poured in. He climbed the steps slowly, candlelight flickering once more. The door swung wide, hinges groaning. A figure stood in the snow. Nar. Or what was left of him. His cloak was torn, armor-scorched. One of his optical implants blinked erratically. He limped forward on one damaged leg, frost clinging to his joints. But it wasn't the damage that mattered. It was his eyes. They weren't looking at the human. They weren't looking at the house. They were looking, behind him, at the trees. The human turned. 10 glowing eyes blinked in the woods. Not machines. Not drones. Humans. Every one of them still. Silent. Dressed in hunting gear, flannel, work jackets. Normal things. But their presence made the forest bend. They didn't move like soldiers. They didn't have to. They just watched. What is this? Nar rasped. The man tilted his head. You thought we were alone? Nar felt at his knees. Not out of pain, but out of understanding. The human knelt beside him. You landed on the wrong assumption, he said gently. That Earth was ever quiet. Behind them, one of the watchers stepped forward. A woman in her 60s. Gray hair pulled into a braid. Wrinkles like rivers. She carried no weapon. Only a single note in her hand, folded once. She handed it to the tactician. He opened it. One line, scrawled in ink. Site Delta, all 7 confirmed. Omega Protocol awaiting trigger. He nodded, folded the note, and tucked it into his shirt. Nar looked up. You planned this? No, the man said. We rehearsed it. He stood. We gave peace 100 years. You gave us 7 assassins. From the trees, another shape emerged. Then another. Each human had a story written in their scars. Farmers, teachers, welders, quiet people who had watched the stars like they were waiting for a storm. The human knelt again, face softening. Go home, he whispered. Tell them we don't need warships. We have porches. We have silence. We have time. He stood. And we know how to wait. Nar's implant sputtered once more before going black. He fell forward. Not dead. Not broken. Just released. 3 hours later, Yusk landed on an Imperial cruiser in Sector 9. He carried only a small black case. The officers did not greet him. They stared. He walked in silence, barefoot, scorched, his face unreadable. Inside the chamber, the High Chancellor waited. You returned alone, Ithel said. Yusk nodded. He placed the case on the table. The Chancellor opened it. Inside were 6 small tags. Each one bore a name. Each one soaked in dried blood. No heads. Ithel asked. No, Yusk said. Why? They weren't trophies. The Chancellor narrowed his eyes. Then what were they? Yusk looked up slowly. They were warnings. The Chancellor hissed. You failed your mission. No, Yusk said. They gave me one. Ithel blinked. What mission? Yusk leaned forward and smiled. Back on Earth, the tactician stood by the barn, staring into the sunrise. The sky was quiet, the trees calm. Snow melted along the ridges of the field. He took a long breath. Behind him, the woman from the woods spoke softly. You think he'll deliver the message? The man shrugged. He already has. From beneath his coat, he pulled another folded note. This one was smaller, older. He handed it to her. She opened it. Inside only 3 words. It begins now. They watched the sun rise and waited for the sky to change color. The Imperial fleet hovered above Earth like a judgment delayed. 3 carriers wide as mountain ranges, flanked by 16 destroyers and a diplomatic barge gilded in the silver-bone metal of the Vorth Empire. From orbit, the planet looked like it always had. Blue, soft, fragile. But no one on the bridge of the flagship Mist of Honor believed that anymore. The Emperor hadn't spoken since the case arrived. It now sat sealed in the center of the command chamber, behind 3 layers of shielding and a psychic barrier. Inside, 6 identification tags, sealed in carbon dust and blood. 1 for each assassin who never came back. The 7th, Yusk, stood silently at the edge of the chamber, no longer speaking unless spoken to. High Chancellor Ithel paced near the viewport. "We sent 7, he growled. 7. They sent them back, whispered one of the lieutenants. Sort of. They didn't just kill them, Ithel snapped. They staged them, made it a message. No blood rituals. No executions. Just disappearance." He turned on Yusk, eyes blazing. "And what did you see? What did they show you?" Yusk didn't answer. His hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with the weight of something heavier than death, understanding. "They invited us," he said at last. The chamber fell silent. "What?" the Emperor asked. Yusk turned. "They didn't retaliate. They didn't posture. They hosted us." And watched. Ithel stepped forward. "You sound like you admire them." Yusk met his gaze. "No. I fear them." Ithel struck the table. "Then fear will remind the galaxy who commands it. Prepare the weapon." The Emperor raised one hand, halting him. "There is something else in the case," he said quietly. Yusk's brow furrowed. "I didn't see." The Emperor reached into his sleeve and pulled out a folded slip of human paper, aged and yellowed. On it, written in ink, "You sent 7. We're just warming up." The words were not signed, but they didn't need to be. Everyone in the chamber felt it. The message wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was confidence. And it chilled them more than death. Below, on Earth, the tactician walked barefoot through the orchard behind the barn, frost crunching beneath his heels. A thermos of black coffee steamed in one hand, and a small hand-drawn map fluttered in the other. Behind him, the woman with gray braids kept pace. They're positioning satellites over the Western Hemisphere. He nodded. "How long until they start triangulating?" "Hours, if they're patient. Minutes, if they're mad." "They're mad," he said, sipping slowly. "They've always been mad." They came to a rusted hatch half buried beneath the soil. He bent, brushing frost off the metal, then turned the wheel and opened it with a grunt. Below, a tunnel glowed with pale blue light. He stepped in, and the door sealed behind them. The hallway stretched into a command room, not large, not militarized, but built like a brain, focused, quiet, all gray and thought. Screens flickered on. Feed from farms, valleys, railroads, bakeries, and bunkers disguised as grain silos. Faces appeared one by one, men and women, teens and elders, dressed like nothing at all but themselves. A voice crackled over the speakers, their positioning. "Should we warm up the sky?" "Not yet," the tactician said. "Let him breathe first." From a console, the gray-haired woman pulled up a list titled Homefront Units. Each one had a nickname. No ranks. Just names. Grand's Kitchen. Midnight Choir. Hollow Oak. Soft Hands. 4th of July. All ready. The man looked out the narrow window built into the hillside. The orchard looked the same. Wind in the branches. Birds flying low. But he saw it now. In the branches, in the dirt, under the roots. People. Waiting. Watching. The planet had not hidden its strength. It had just never needed to show it. Above, the first satellite pinged. The Empire had begun mapping. The tactician turned to a wall of switches, old ones mechanical. He flipped the first. In Sector 12, a wheat field burst into bloom, not with plants, but mirrors. Hundreds of them, spinning into place, blinding sensors. He flipped the second. A barn lit up with decoy signals. Artificial troop movement, heat signatures, weapons fire. All fake, all overwhelming. Flip. A train full of civilians vanished mid-tunnel, hidden in a hydraulic chamber beneath the earth, like a breath held. He paused. Then flipped the fourth. The command room dimmed. "We're now transmitting a galactic peace broadcast," the woman said, eyes scanning the interface. "Standard frequencies. Emergency request for negotiation." "Good," he said. "Let's make them nervous." On the Mist of Honor, alarms shrieked. The human signal had gone wide. "Sector-wide interference," barked the technician. "They're flooding comms with what looks like a distress message, encoded in 500 dialects." The Emperor frowned. "Why?" Yusk whispered. "They want us to think we can still talk." Ithal's fist tightened. "Fire a warning shot." "No," the Emperor said. "They want that too." The room froze. "Every action we take," the Emperor said slowly, "has already been modeled. They invited us to make a move. And when we do—" He trailed off. Outside the ship, thousands of microsatellites appeared on radar. They hadn't launched. They'd been sleeping, disguised as space junk, as weather particles, as signals of old mining beacons. And now they moved. Not fast, not armed, but with a pattern. Together, they began to form a single image, a rotating, low-resolution visual that fed directly into every sensor screen across the fleet. A face. The tactician's face. Smiling. Then speaking. "Hi there," the recording said, voice steady, friendly. "If y'all are seeing this, you've reached our doorstep. And I'd like to welcome you very politely to Earth." The voice paused. The smile didn't. "You sent 7. That was ambitious. We sent 6 back and let 1 walk. That was a kindness. Most folks would take that as a hint." Behind the voice, Earth rotated slowly in the image. "But since y'all seem to be asking for a second serving, I figured I'd clear up a few things." Static buzzed. Then the recording resumed. "We're not scared. We're not alone. And we're not planning to meet you in orbit." The screen zoomed out, revealing humans spread across continents, holding nothing but tools, pens, radios, livestock, books, and, occasionally, rifles. "But we are everywhere." The message ended. The fleet trembled, not from weapons, but from recognition. On the bridge, the Emperor rose. "We cannot invade them." Ithal spat. "Why not?" "Because you cannot conquer what refuses to play your game." On Earth, the tactician leaned back in his chair, a map of Earth spread before him. The woman beside him spoke softly. "They'll leave." He shook his head. "They'll retreat." "Same thing." "No," he said. "Retreat means they'll come back." He stood, opened the final cabinet in the wall. Inside, sealed in lead-line cases, were artifacts the galaxy never knew humans kept. Ancient weapons from wars fought in secret, messages from alien spies, broken gear reverse-engineered in silence, the collected mistakes of every empire that tried to walk quietly through Earth's history. The man placed a single slip of paper on the table. 3 words. "Begin Operation Sunday." The woman raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" He nodded. They wanted to see what's behind the curtain. He picked up the thermos again. "Let's show them the church." In space, the Mist of Honor shuddered, not from fire, but from light. The satellites burst into coordinated motion, flooding every imperial system with human logic loops, mathematical traps designed to freeze military AIs by simulating paradoxes. The fleet went blind. And in that moment of blindness, Earth turned silent. Nothing more, nothing less, just stillness. Then came the noise. Not a blast, not a scream, but a hymn, broadcast in thousands of alien tongues. The same melody, old, slow. It echoed across vacuum like a memory reawakened. The Mist of Honor tilted slightly in orbit. Some said it was gravity. Others said it bowed. Yusk watched the stars and whispered, "They're not at war." The Emperor closed his eyes. "No," he said. "They're making a point." Back on Earth, the tactician walked the porch again, thermos empty, sun cresting. He spoke quietly, knowing someone, somewhere, was still listening. You wanted tribute, he said. He looked up at the sky. We gave you terror.